Imagine being given a mission so terrifying, so impossible, that your first instinct is to run not just anywhere, but as far away as humanly possible. Imagine knowing that your destiny is calling, but doing everything in your power to escape it. This is the story of Jonah, a man who tried to flee from the presence of God and learned the hard way that you can't outrun the Almighty. Chapter 1. The Call of a Prophet. 790 years before Jesus was born, in the northern kingdom of Israel, a prophet named Jonah, son of Amittai, received an unexpected command from God. The Lord's word had come to many prophets before him: Elijah, Elisha, Amos, and Hosea, tasked with confronting Israel's wayward kings. But Jonah's mission was different. God commanded, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their evil has come up before me." Jonah's heart pounded. Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, the sworn enemy of his people, a kingdom drenched in violence, infamous for impaling their captives, skinning prisoners alive, and displaying their severed heads on city walls. Jonah could almost hear their battle cries, see their war chariots rolling through the dust, their swords dripping with the blood of conquered nations. How could he walk into the heart of such a place and demand repentance? Surely he would be mocked, tortured, or worse, executed before he could utter a second word. But beyond the fear was something darker, more insidious. He didn't want them to be saved. He wanted them to burn. So Jonah ran. Rather than heading northeast to Nineveh, Jonah fled southwest, boarding a ship bound for Tarshish, a place so distant it might as well have been the ends of the earth. He was trying to escape the presence of God. But can you really outrun the Almighty? Chapter 2. The Storm at Sea. Jonah's escape was short-lived. As his ship set sail, God hurled a mighty storm upon the sea, so fierce that the vessel threatened to break apart. The wind screamed, waves crashed against the hull like the fists of an angry god. The sailors, hardened men who had spent their lives braving the sea, were now reduced to trembling figures, crying out to their gods and throwing cargo overboard in a desperate attempt to keep the ship afloat. Meanwhile, Jonah slept, buried beneath the deck, oblivious to the chaos above. He lay curled in the dark, seeking refuge in unconsciousness. Perhaps if he ignored it long enough, it would all go away. A hand grabbed his shoulder, shaking him violently. The ship's captain stood over him, his eyes wild with terror. "Get up! Call on your God! Maybe he will notice us so we won't perish!" Jonah's heart sank. This was because of him. As the storm raged, the sailors cast lots to determine who was responsible for their calamity. The lot fell to Jonah. When they confronted him, demanding answers, he swallowed hard and finally admitted, "I am a Hebrew. I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and dry land." The sailors recoiled. This was no ordinary storm. This was divine wrath. "What should we do to stop this storm?" they pleaded, desperation thick in their voices. Jonah's response was both shocking and telling. "Throw me into the sea, and it will become calm." The sailors hesitated. Murder was not something they took lightly. Instead, they rowed furiously, trying to fight against the raging waters and reach shore. But the storm only grew worse, howling like an enraged beast. Realizing they had no choice, they cried out to Jonah's God for mercy, then lifted him over the side. Jonah hit the water, and the storm stopped. Instantly, the sailors, awestruck, fell to their knees. They had set out worshiping many gods. Now, they feared only one. Chapter 3. Swallowed by the deep. As Jonah sank into the depths, he felt the crushing weight of the sea closing in around him. Darkness swallowed him whole. The silence was deafening. Then, a shadow. Something vast. Something alive. With a sudden rush, Jonah was engulfed. Inside the belly of the beast, time lost all meaning. He lay in the suffocating darkness, his skin burned by acid, his lungs filled with the stench of decay. 3 days, 3 nights, a living grave. Then, at his breaking point, Jonah prayed. "In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. Those who cling to worthless idols forsake their own mercy. But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. Salvation belongs to the Lord!" The moment the words left his lips, the fish lurched. A violent convulsion. Then, the world turned upside down as Jonah was expelled onto dry land, gasping, drenched, alive. Chapter 4. The Mission Repeated. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. "Arise, go to Nineveh and proclaim the message I give you." This time, Jonah obeyed. Nineveh was vast, a city that would take 3 days to walk through. But Jonah barely got a day in before delivering the simplest sermon in history. Yet 40 days, and Nineveh will be overthrown. That's it. No call to repentance, no explanation, just 8 words of impending doom. And yet, the response was immediate. The people repented, fasting and covering themselves with sackcloth. Even the king stepped down from his throne, removed his royal robes, and sat in ashes, decreeing, "Let everyone call out earnestly to God. Let them turn from their evil ways and violence. Who knows? God may relent and turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish." And God did. Chapter 5, Destiny and the Fish. Jonah's story mirrors our own. How often do we resist our calling, running from what we know we're meant to do? Like Jonah, we may try to escape, but destiny has a way of catching up to us, sometimes in the form of a storm, a failure, or an unexpected hardship. Perhaps the great fish in our lives isn't a literal sea creature, but a moment of crisis that forces us to stop, reflect, and realign. Maybe it's a lost opportunity, a broken relationship, or an unexpected setback that swallows us whole, leaving us in a dark place where we must confront our own fears and flaws. The fish wasn't just Jonah's punishment, it was his salvation. And sometimes, the things we fear the most are the very things that bring us back to where we were always meant to be. Chapter 6, A Christian's Journey, Embracing Destiny and Divine Mercy. Like Jonah, every Christian has a calling, one that can feel overwhelming and beyond our abilities. Just as Jonah ran from his mission, we too may be tempted to avoid God's plan for us, afraid of what it might require or unsure of our own worthiness. But like Jonah, we cannot escape the destiny God has set before us. The Apostle Paul is another example of someone who ran in the opposite direction, persecuting Christians until God intervened and transformed him on the road to Damascus. Like Jonah, his life was redirected by God's calling, and he became a powerful instrument in spreading the Christian faith. Similarly, as Christians, we will often face fish moments of crisis, when it seems like everything has gone wrong and we're swallowed by darkness. These times aren't just about punishment, they are about transformation. In our darkest moments, God's voice becomes clear, guiding us back to him and realigning us with his purpose. Jonah's time in the fish was not just consequence, it was a divine opportunity for reflection, surrender, and change. The journey may not be easy, but God's mercy will always guide us back, ready to fulfill the plan he has for our lives. Will you run from your calling? Or will you trust in God's mercy and embrace your destiny?